The year was 1777, and the forests of New York smelled of damp pine and gunpowder. Thomas Hale crouched low behind a stone wall, musket in hand, heart thudding like a war drum. He was only 19, a farmer's son from Virginia, but already he had seen more blood than any man ought to see in a lifetime. "Hold your fire," whispered Captain Mercer, raising his hand. British redcoats were advancing slowly down the wooded path, their bayonets gleaming in the morning sun. Thomas clutched his musket tighter, sweat pouring down his back despite the cold. He hadn't always wanted war. A year before, he had been plowing his father's field, dreaming of a life with Mary Carter, the baker's daughter. But the world changed quickly. British soldiers had burned houses near Boston. Taxes had risen. And when Thomas's older brother, Samuel, was killed in a skirmish near Lexington, the war had become personal. The moment came. "Fire!" Captain Mercer cried. Gunfire ripped through the silence. Thomas pulled the trigger, feeling the kick of his musket slam into his shoulder. Smoke clouded the air as men shouted, screamed, and fell. The redcoats scattered, some retreating into the woods. "Reload!" Mercer shouted. Thomas reached for his powder horn with trembling fingers, his hands sticky with sweat and grime. Another volley. Another scream. The world was chaos. When the smoke cleared, the British were gone, and the forest was eerily quiet. Thomas stood up, panting. Around him lay the bodies of his friends and enemies alike. He knelt by a young man in a red coat, no older than he was. The soldier's eyes stared blankly at the sky. "Is this what freedom costs?" Thomas murmured. That night, the men made camp in a nearby glen. The fire crackled as they ate hard bread and smoked meat. Thomas sat silently, staring into the flames. Captain Mercer approached and sat beside him. "You fought well today," the captain said. "I killed a boy," Thomas replied, voice hollow. Mercer sighed. "So did I. So did most of us. But it's not the killing we fight for. It's the right to live without a king's boot on our neck." Thomas looked up. "But what if we lose? What if all of this, my brother's death, all this blood, it's for nothing?" Mercer placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then at least we'll die as free men, not as subjects." The word stayed with Thomas through the bitter winter. He marched with Washington's army across frozen rivers, fought at Brandywine, and nearly starved at Valley Forge. He watched friends die from disease, wounds, and cold. Yet something inside him hardened, not into hatred but resolve. In spring 1781, word came that the British were massing in Yorktown. The Continental Army moved fast, joined by the French forces under General Rochambeau. Thomas, now a sergeant, led a squad of younger recruits. He had become what his brother once was, a leader. The siege of Yorktown was fierce. Cannon fire thundered day and night. The ground shook. Trenches were dug under constant fire. But the Americans were determined. On October 14th, Thomas took part in the assault on Redoubt 10, one of the last British strongholds. Under the cover of night they charged. "Forward!" Thomas shouted as they stormed the fort, bayonets gleaming. Men fell around him, but he pressed on, leaping over fallen logs and ducking musket fire. He reached the wall and climbed, the weight of his musket and gear dragging at him. A British soldier lunged at him with a bayonet. Thomas parried and struck with the butt of his musket, sending the man sprawling. Then they were inside. The redoubt was theirs. The next day, the British surrendered. As the British soldiers marched out, their band played "The World Turned Upside Down." Thomas watched in awe. General Cornwallis did not attend the ceremony. He claimed to be ill. But General Washington accepted the surrender with quiet dignity. It was over. The war at last was ending. Later, as the soldiers celebrated, Thomas walked alone to a hill overlooking the bay. The sun was setting, casting golden light over the water. He pulled from his coat a small wooden token, a carving of a dove once belonging to his brother. "You were right, Samuel," he whispered. We are free. But freedom, he knew, was not simple. There would be years of rebuilding, political battles, and a nation to shape. Yet for now there was peace. The Redcoats were going home, and the land was theirs. Thomas returned to Virginia a hero. He married Mary Carter, and together they rebuilt his family's farm. He planted wheat where cannon once roared and taught his children the cost of liberty. Every year, on the anniversary of Yorktown, he would sit beneath the old oak tree and tell the story of the war. Not of glory and bloodshed, but of courage, sacrifice, and hope. And he always ended the same way. Freedom is not given, it is earned. And it is kept by remembering what it took to gain it.